Hello, homeschoolers. A very happy Monday to you all. I am so excited to be here today hosting. Now, usually Heather Vogler is here, and I'm filling in for her. I'm Steph Morrison, and I am here with Jenny Cote. And she is a great author of a number of books, which she is going to tell you about because she knows more about it. So welcome, Jenny. Thank you so much for joining us on our Homeschool Live today.
Oh, Steph, thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Old School Magazine and AMG, my publisher, for having me here today. I'm so excited to chat with y'all.
Well, I am so excited because I have not read any of your books, but now that we're going to have this nice conversation and I'm going to get so much more information, I know I'm going to be buying one of them soon. And probably starting with the first. And you actually have a couple of videos. And after I saw those, just as I was preparing for this interview, of course, that made me want to watch them more. So I think we're gonna let's start with those. Let's get those trailer of the video. So you introduce them, and then Patty, doing our work behind the scenes, is going to she'll play the videos for us.
Okay. All right, great. Well, there are 8 books in all. The videos we're going to show are for the Revolution books. And the first one is for The Voice, the Revolution, and the Key. And that is my first Revolution book. And then the second one is The Declaration, the Sword, and the Spy. And that's the second one that's out. So we can watch those and then we can chat about them.
Sounds good. So are we going to play the second one now, Patty, or do we want to?
Huzzah! Yay, thanks.
Woo! That makes history fun, and I can tell already just by those videos, but from your books, that's exactly what you're doing with your writing. Sharing a lot of stories, fictional stories, right? With the animals being the main character, obviously personifying them and giving them great personalities. But sharing a lot of history facts. So now you've got a study guide that goes with these books, and I thought I just get you to explain that a little bit, because especially for our homeschooler viewers, like that is the greatest way to teach history. Has been in my experience anyway. Get fiction books that tell something, and then it's always a great way to jump off in different areas. But so tell us about how that works with your study guide.
All right, absolutely. Well, so The Voice, the Revolution, and the Key and The Declaration of the Sword and the Spy are the first two of a 5-book saga on the American Revolution. And I have 6 books prior to that. We'll talk about that in a minute, but let's stay on the Revolution right now. And for years, I mean, my first book came out in 2008, and I've had parents and grandparents say, please, can you do a study guide? And I was like, I'm not equipped to do that. I'm not, I'm not good enough to, I can write big chunky novels, but I can't write a study guide. That's not my forte. And so my dear friend, Claire Roberts-Foltz, who is a home educator herself, who's trained to do this. She's been with me from book 1. I said, Claire, can you please, when COVID hit and every parent was homeschooling, I was like, we got to do this. We got to make this happen. And so Claire, she took up the challenge, and she has written a phenomenal 444-page study guide for The Voice of the Revolution and the Key. I have it. I know it's going to be kind of reflecty here. This is just my printed version. There we are. And it is written for 3 levels, Eaglet, Fledgling, and Eagle. My main character hosts are my bald eagle, Cote, and my British mouse, Nigel. And so it has an eagle theme to it. And it's really dependent on either the age, grade, or the reading level of the child. And it takes each chapter of the book and has questions for each chapter on that level for literature and history comprehension. It comes with 4 book part tests and a final exam to be used as a transcript credit. And it's not just asking questions of what happened in the story. It takes them on research to go outside of it. And so we have tested it with some homeschool families of all of those age groups, and they love it. And it's going to be a fun way to dive into American history like you've never seen it before. And so the print version, we're working on that right now. We're hoping it's going to be out within the week. Digital download is available right now on my website. Right.
Great. So tell us next about the Epic Order of the Seven. What is that?
Okay. Well, to tell you that, I got to back up a little bit. Okay. So the main characters of the entire book series, all 8 of them, are a Scottish Terrier named Max and a French cat named Liz. And these were my real pets. And so I was watching them play fight one day, and I thought, when did dogs and cats first get on each other's nerves? I said, maybe when they were cooped up on Noah's Ark for a year. And so the idea came, well, what would that look like? And so book 1 is The Ark, the Reed, and the Fire Cloud. And it's the adventures of the animals heading in Noah's Ark, and they foil a plot by a stowaway is going to kill Noah and wipe out the human race. So then they save the day in the story of Joseph in Egypt. And the first 2 titles are under the series, The Amazing Tales of Max and Liz. These are prequels to Epic Order of the Seven, because the maker is building this team of animals. And by the 3rd mission, they're known as the Order of the Seven. And so then we go on to the Christmas story, and The Life of Christ, The Realm of the 12 and the King, and Acts, The Wind, the Road, and the Way, and up to through the Fall of Rome, The Fire of the Revelation, and the Fall. And then that brings us up to the American Revolution. So the Epic Order of the Seven is a team of animals, and the humans are clueless that these animals are anything cute little dogs and cats and a little mouse. But they affect events in history, and this is the way they do it. My books are historical fiction, fantasy in that order, so that the history stuff I exhaust to make sure it's sound historically, theologically, and I exhaust everything we can possibly know. And then I layer the fiction on top of it to bring George Washington or Paul or these characters to life. And then the animals are the fantasy. And this is how they work. I look for those moments where we either don't know how or why something happened in history, and I slide them in, and they're the agents that made that happen. I don't alter that historical moment, but they're the ones that affected it. Okay, so one of the most important things in the back of my book, Steph, as I was sharing with you before, is my word from the author, where I go through the chapters and I say, this was real, this was fake, this is where two things happen in history. We're not sure which one. I ran with this one because I never want to lead any reader astray with something that happened fictionally, because 200 years later, people will think it really happened. So I'm very clear on keeping the history pure. But the animals, they act like tour guides, and they explain things as it goes along, and it makes it fun for kids and adults.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably let my kids read them, but I mean that's just exactly my kind of reading right there. I love that historical fiction, and especially to get a better understanding of the Bible. Now, I haven't read your books to know that, but the historical fiction that I have read in the past, like that's what really got me to even to love the Old Testament. Just when I read a series of books on that, and as well, and I've read about the New Testament. That's just a little bit easier to take though. In the Bible, but all that stuff just helps us understand that more. And as we're teaching our kids, of course, it's great to have these tools that we can give them. Oh, read this on your own. And now that you have that study guide, I think that's going to be for people that have already read your books. Now you've just added that extra element to be able to love that book again, because they sound like books that I would keep on my bookshelf and we could enjoy them again and again. Oh, here's a question. Here's the study guide.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the study guide for a full year. Yes, it can be a semester, a full year. It actually can be as long as you want it to be. And some parents have said, yes, this could be a full year. And by the way, I did want to say, we decided to start with the Revolution for the study guides because it's the most pressing thing that parents are teaching right now. Claire is beginning work on the Declaration, the Sword and the Spy. We hope to have that out by Christmas. And then she's going to go back and do the first 6 biblical titles as well. And so we're going to have them all study guide available. I also want to mention another resource is both the Ark, the Read the Fire Cloud, which is book 1, and the Voice, the Revolution, and the Key are on Audible right now. So it's an audio book that your young ones can even listen to and read with their books. And then also, wait, there's more. We have a podcast on my website. Season 1 covered the Art, the Read, and the Fire Cloud, and we play a chapter every week. And then Max and Liz are your hosts, and I come on and I give kind of behind the scenes info. And we're in season 2 right now of The Voice, the Revolution, and the Key. So you can slowly listen to that history book and supplement that with the reading and with the study guide. So we're trying to give you all these different resources to make this history fun to teach and to learn.
And is the podcast available just on the general podcast stations out there, like being on like Google and I don't know, there's a few more.
Yeah, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, but you can go to my website. You have to go to the7.com podcast and you'll see it right there. So yeah, it's great fun. And a new episode launches every Tuesday morning. And Denny Brownlee is
great.
Yeah, he is in Nashville, Tennessee, and he is this miracle voice man. For the Ark, he did 105 voices. For the Voice, the Revolution, and the Key, he did 150 voices, all the different animal, people voices. I don't know how he does it, but it's really entertaining and a lot of fun. You're going to love it.
Can't wait to hear that. We are a big audio adventure. So Adventures in Odyssey has played quite a lot. We just got turned on to Lamplighter. A lot of historical stories, but really brought to life, right? It's I love being able to, you don't have to sit down and stare at a screen and get a story, right? Just skilled people doing that. Doing that, stories can share a lot. So you've already shared quite a bit with us about really how your books work for homeschooling families, but is there anything else that you want to share on top of that on how homeschooling families would really benefit from your books? Obviously your study guide, but even just reading your books.
Well, I tell you, like you said, you've already covered a lot of it as far as making history fun and come alive. And by offering the book in all those different formats, whether it's by print, and they're on ebook too. So you can get it in print, in ebook, audio, podcast, and study guide, because we know kids learn in different ways. Adults learn in different ways. You know, one might speak to one better. By the way, the Declaration, we're also hoping for the Declaration Sword and Spy to be out by Christmas also. You hear that, Denny Brownlee? No pressure. Because it's 25 hours worth of recording was the Voice of the Revolution in the Key. But, you know, all of these are going to be ways to make Scripture, the first 6 books, the Bible, come alive like you've never seen it. Think about Max and Liz and the Animals being a walking Bible commentary for kids, if you will. I've even had parents says, can you please make a Bible of your books? And I'm like, because the animals, that's kind of what they do. You know, Jesus feeds the 5,000 and the animals sit there and have a conversation. What do you mean by this and that? And so they're giving you explanations for what's going on. One of the things also, while we're just mentioning Jesus, one of the hardest scenes I've ever had to write, obviously, was the Passion. You know, the crucifixion, scourging. And my number one commitment to parents is that their kids will always feel safe within the pages of my books, that they don't need to worry about what's in there. That, of course, was the toughest scene, because I didn't want to sugarcoat it, you know, but I don't want to scare kids either, because that's my commitment. And so, you know, that I put a note in the front on the outline, you know, if you have any concerns, please read this with your child ahead of time. And I've never had one, you know, complain about that. Because so the books, they're full of adventure, excitement. Yeah, there's some scary moments. Life is scary, but I've couched it with this team that's going to guide them through and make it fun. And so I really pray it's going to be a tool that parents can use to teach a plethora of history from the beginning up to our current history. And then after I finish the Revolution, we're going to C.S. Lewis in World War II, because I'm a big World War II junkie too. So I'm hoping to give you the plethora of all of it.
Take the joy of learning for you, and then you put it all on pages and nice big books, right? Because your books they're not thin little books. They are a big chunk too. I think my son, you know, I've got a 13-year-old, and although he does enjoy reading, he may be intimidated by that. But it's certainly, I think he would grab the storyline. I think he would grab the animals, and we're all big animal lovers here. So I think he could grab onto that and be able to get through it. He'd be intimidated at first, but I have a feeling you write in a way that's really going to engage children's minds, right? Be able to.
Right. Well, and I have been shocked by the number of kids who said the same thing, that they were intimidated, you know, by the size. And the arc is like 450. That's the shortest one. But they launched onto it because they were so intrigued with the animals, and then they fell in love with it, and it allowed them to break that fear of reading big chunky books, and now they devour them. I can't tell you how many parents have written me, and that's one of the most humbling things, when it's like, you enabled my child to learn to read on a level they didn't think they could. And this is one thing too. Listen, parents, I don't apologize for writing these big chunky books. And I don't write down to kids. I write up to them. And I put a lot of complex words in there. And guess what? If they don't know it, go look it up or go ask your parents. You know, I don't apologize for that. There's some tough stuff. And this last book is really the kitchen sink of history books. I got a little out of control on my details. But it's like, oh, I got to tell them this and I got to tell them that. So there's a lot of original documents and letters with old English verbiage and that kind of stuff in there that it's like a foreign language to us. But learn what our founding fathers read, how they talked. All of these things are real important, you know, and not to water down the excellence with which our founders spoke and wrote and all of that. So again, yeah, it's tough, but I want to bring your level up. Our founding fathers read Plutarch's Parallel Lives. Have you read that, Steph? Have you read Plutarch before? It's complex. And these are big chunks. And our founders were reading them as kids. They read the ancients, you know? And so it's like, if we could get back to that level of reading again, I think our kids would, you know, be a lot smarter, as with the parents. All of us.
Well, I wanted to see, because you have experience, and you are teaching kids through your books, right? Like, what do you see as one of the biggest challenges that homeschooling families will have teaching history specifically?
Well, right now there's a tsunami coming at you against history, isn't there? That
Hmm.
history needs to be erased, or it needs to be altered, or we don't need to teach it. We need to. And listen, I write the good, the bad, and the ugly of history. We got to know all of it. There's a lot
Yeah.
of bad, painful moments in our history. And I think a current mentality is, oh, well, let's just shut that away. But that's the exact opposite thing we need to do, because, Santiana, those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. How are you not going to know what not to do again? Did I say that correctly? You got to know the bad and the ugly of history, so we will avoid that and never do it again. And you got to know the good to repeat that. So, yeah, there's a lot of uncomfortable moments I have to write, but you've got to know all of it. That's how we learn from the
Hmm.
mistakes, never to do that again. So yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, I believe so that's one thing. And parents, you don't put it just on the kids to know their history. You've got to know it too. And I would say everyone needs to know their history, not just, and when kids see their parents care about it and are excited about it, they're going to be excited about it. But one of the most important things I would also say is you have to make them understand, why should they care? What is it that affects their life today that happened 250 years ago? Why should they care? And show the impact, how
Hmm.
life would be different if they didn't have that. And how, you can't get complacent about what we have, can we? Our
Hmm.
founders warned us. They said, don't get complacent about liberty. They said, you're going to have to always fight for it. And so, there's a big baton to you parents, to mantle of responsibility, to get your kids engaged and to understand how precious liberty is and what it took to give us the best country in the history of earth, and Canada too. We love our northern neighbors, right, Steph? But yeah, I mean, this incredible experiment that started off broken, right? Did you know the Liberty Bell cracked from the first ring?
Really?
The duration was broken. It wasn't perfect when we started. But it's like, you have to build on that. You don't throw them away. You build on it, and you make it better. So, yeah.
Hmm.
But no pressure,
That made
parents.
me think. Yeah, no pressure. Made me think. So for you viewers that are watching, that I do live in Canada myself, and I just recently learned of this quote, and we have it on the, if I remember it correctly, the south wall of the center building of one of where our Parliament buildings are in Ottawa, and it says something to that effect of what you just said. That we always need to have the courage to fight for freedom. That when we stop fighting for freedom, for liberty, right, for that, like, we will lose it. It's a constant battle, and I think that's one of those things. It's constantly in human nature, and I believe God's word has so much. I mentioned before about the Old Testament. Like, it took me a while, and I didn't become a believer until I was well into my adulthood. But it took me a while to even want to look at the Old Testament, and now I really love it. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily love all the bad stuff, but I still read that because God put it there for a reason, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly is all in there, and we need to, all throughout history. I mean, that history that God shared with us in the Bible, but all that stuff that's happened from now till from then till now and going forward, we need to make sure it's documented, and documented well, right? Even as you said,
Right.
sometimes that fiction can get, and I feel like, some of those big blockbuster Hollywood, you do hear some critiques once in a while. They do great, and they want to make it maybe they want to make it more engaging than historical, depending on the movie. But I think
Right.
it's so important and so great that you point that out, that your goal is to not change history in a way just to make it engaging. And that, I think, is the skill. That's the gift that God gives you, to make history, that you can make it entertaining, engaging, right? And be able to write in such a skilled way, to catch attention and not change what the facts really were, right?
Right. And to the point, well, let me give you an example. Paul Revere. Okay. What did Paul on his midnight ride? What did he say? Everybody says the British are coming. Guess what? He didn't. That was in a poem.
No.
More than likely, because why would he not say the British are coming? Because we were all British. Everybody would have been coming if he said that. He likely said the regulars are out. So it's a little detail like that. Now, Longfellow in his poem, you know, the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. I mean, it's great. It rhymes well, and but again, that's just one little example. And I set that right, you know, in this book. And people would say, well, what does that matter? Well, for a purist like me, those little details matter. And that's why the books get so long. Because I care about the details of history and getting it right.
And did you want to write shorter books? Like, say, even just the first book you wrote, because maybe you realized at that. But when you started, you were like, this is way too long if I'm writing it for kids. Like, did that thought come to your mind, or it was right?
Well, and I will speak for A&G. Yes, I know. I apologize. They said, Jenny, can you please write it, you know, shorter? And I've really tried. But they keep growing again because I keep finding stuff. And again, all right. So the Revolution book was originally going to be just Patrick Henry and be one book. And then I said, no, I think I'm going to need it to be 2. Well, maybe 3. And then finally, okay, 5. Okay, 5. And I'm done, because as I saw what was happening on the assault on our history, I thought, you know what? I've got to chronicle our story, America's story, and the fight for freedom in a way it never has been before, because we're getting ready to lose this detail. It's going to be lost to history if it's not chronicled in this way. And so they kept, and I said, well, I got to tell them this, and I got to tell them this, you know. And one of the overarching themes that I'm showing, which will shout out to my French Canadian friends, I guess at least, is the French alliance, and how we would not be free. America could not win her independence without France. And so I've got this big overarching theme that's bigger than just America, but our first friend, which was France. And the Marquis de Lafayette is my main character for the next book. I'll give you a sneak preview. Look, here's the next book cover, The Marquis, the Escape, and the Forge, and that I'm busy working on that right now. So they keep getting bigger, and I can't help it. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry about that, because I have a feeling that the end of the book would come. I'm going to read a book, and the end of the book will come, and it's like, where's the next one? I feel like they're going to be really engaging. And I have read little snippets of it. I actually do a bit of background work on our contest corner, which is a giveaway we have every month. And so we had the Ark, the Ark, the Reed, and the Fire Cloud. You always go by 3s in your title, right? The Ark, the Reed, and the Fire Cloud was one of our giveaways a few months ago, at some point this year, and it was certainly very popular. But with that, I was able to get a bit of that because we had a review included with it. I thought the review was really great. The mom that had read that and had her kids read that, so it was like it's now that I've interacted with you now the second time I learned about your books, then this is my sign now that this is our next history segue, right? I think it's going to be an excellent way, because I'm not one necessarily in our learning to have like any kind of textbook. And really, I have to say that I've never done anything. We read lots of biographies and we watch different movies. We do stuff with the Bible and history, right? But I've never done a curriculum, like a history curriculum yet. Not that I'm against that. I just haven't found one that really seems to gonna work for all the different learners we have in our household here. So now, so you've given us lots of advice already, but I do just want to put out another question to you. If you have any other, like, what advice can you give homeschooling moms? And keeping that in mind too, that there are so many new homeschoolers this year that have just started homeschooling this year, and so many that are going to continue. Like, they just see the benefits for it. So what can you give for homeschoolers, especially starting out?
Well, I tell you, it has been my honor and blessing to be on faculty at the FPEA, the Florida Homeschool Convention. And when I was down there in Orlando, Memorial Day weekend, I met many first time homeschool parents. And, a lot of nerves, out there to do that. And I would tell them, first and foremost, believe in yourself. You are the best educator your child will ever have. And, not just on the academia that they need to learn, but through life, everything. And you're the glue that brings that all together. So first and foremost, believe in that. You're also the most passionate teacher your child will ever have, because you're the most invested one, who cares about what goes into your child, to train up your child in the way they should go. So don't for a minute think that you can't do this, because you can. Gilliman, who's the team leader of my Epic Word of the Seven Animals, he's the wise old mountain goat. And the most favorite line that he says that everybody loves from my books is, know that you're loved and that you're able. And you are. And the kids are going to be so excited to see what you pour into them. And so I know that you can do this. As a resource, books, but also I do creative writing workshops, just to let y'all know that. And I love going to homeschool co-ops. So if you ever need a crazy curly-headed lady to come, speak to your group and kind of inspire them on the reading and the writing. In fact, I'm going up to Northern Virginia in a couple of weeks and doing just that. Look for those resources out there. This Facebook group, the magazine, Old Schoolhouse Magazine, shameless advertising. Read, go online, find these groups, connect with people, and start a group yourself. And you'll be amazed how quickly that you pick this up. And I've seen people from all levels, from those who do the full textbook, full curriculum and all that, to Steph, your method, which is more, let's go see and do, and go see where history happened and go to museums and that kind of thing. So there is no wrong way to do this.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love that about homeschooling, because our homeschooling, maybe there's a certain mindset, a bigger mindset now. I think there's a bigger crowd of people that are accepting it now as definitely the lifestyle for their family, because it really is that, right? It's a lifestyle to be the main educator of your children. And I don't always, we teach our children when we're homeschooling, but I don't often have to feel like, I don't have a teaching degree, and I don't have to actually know how to teach, because we have resources like books like yours, right? But in full curriculum, like if you just want something set in front of you, and you've got that full curriculum as well, and throughout the years, probably for anybody else that does that too, but throughout the years that I've been homeschooling, I've changed our approach a few times, because I get to know my kids more, and things change for me more. Maybe times when I'm working more, or when I'm working as less, right? And I can put more time to the in contact teaching, right? And definitely as our kids get older, they need different levels of individual learning time, depending on their learning.
Well, and I think an advantage that homeschool parents have that the others don't is the ability to go on these field trips and to go see history. One of my favorite things to do, I'm involved heavily with Patrick Henry's Red Hill in Brookneal, Virginia, and they do Living History Days a couple of years in the fall and the spring, and I always go up there and I talk. And I love interacting with the homeschool families that have driven from far off places to come see this. And I'll give a shout out to the Velez family in Houston, Texas. Chad Velez is one of my biggest Epic fans, and he fell so in love with Patrick Henry. He had read all my books, but he was so moved by Patrick Henry especially that he has decided he wants to be a lawyer, and he wants to run for governor of Texas and president of the United States. And so Chad, he's 13 now, in April, they came out to see me in Virginia, drove all the way from Houston. They were there for Living History Days. And then I spoke at St. John's Church in Richmond, where Patrick Henry did his Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death. And then Chad arranged a day to go attend Patrick Henry College to sit in on classes for a day. And then we went to Williamsburg. And so, they went to see where history happened. And so parents, go take your kids to see where history happened. take your shoes off, go walk around the battlefields, go read those waysides, go to these museums, because it opens up an entirely different world when you go see where stuff happened. And that's one reason why I have to, as an author and researcher, I have to go see where this stuff happened. Again, I'm a very visual, experiential learner. And that to me is one of the greatest benefits and blessings that homeschooling affords your kids, is to go do that, go see it.
Yeah. That freedom to really be able to experience learning, right? And not just do it at a desk. Like, we all have that time for sure of, you know, book work, whatever that looks like for your family. But to go and experience things and it not have to be a major field trip. I'm thinking like field trips that you do with the great big class that in public, like you just can't do that kind of stuff and have that intimacy with a field trip, right? Going to any of these historical sites, or that you can when you just go with your family. Like, it just doesn't happen in great big groups. And what better for our kids to be led and guided in the right way, right? Than parents being able to do that, and just offering those different things, offering books, for instance, like you have, like you're an excellent resource for homeschoolers. And, you know, I just thought of something on your website, which I thought was, I think it's closed now, so I don't want to say it in a way, well, go to our website and you can, but I remember reading something that you did for your readers, and you gave them was it they were going to read your books before they were published? Is that what it was? I can't remember.
Okay, that's for advanced readers. And so whenever I have a book coming out, this is it doesn't show up, advanced reader comments. So I do a call for advanced readers, and we produce about 100 copies of the manuscript ahead of publication. And I choose about 25-ish children and adults who get to read the manuscript before it goes to press. And they give a review, and they get their name and their family and their city and their state and their country printed in the front of the book as advanced readers. For the Marquis, the Escape, and the Forge, which is my next book, we've already filled almost all of the slots. We have about 6 or 7 slots left. And, you know, we have hundreds of kids that ask to do this. And so I try to be fair and equitable. I've had a few contests, but we're going to send out the call for advanced readers, I'm going to say probably February-ish. And it's a survey that goes out that you can apply to be an advanced reader for the next book. If you can handle the fortune and fame that comes with having your name printed in the front of my book, I welcome you to do that. So if you subscribe to my Epic e-news, just go to, epicorders7.com and then contact or fan, and you'll see the subscription there. And this e-news, I send it out periodically, but you'll get it in your inbox when the call for advanced readers comes. And so that's been a great experience for kids and families to read together too, in a different way, to endorse and encourage other people to read it. And it's been great fun over the years to see some of my advanced readers, now adults, and they're still wanting the books. They're like, hey, when's your next book coming out? So it's been kind of fun to watch those who read it early still loving it. And that's, again, that's something that has blown me away, that these are not just kids' books. And back to Canada, and not just for America too. Listen, I have readers, America, Canada, Australia, Singapore, France, South America, Mexico, Puerto Rico. I'm humbled and mind blown that these books are read all over, but they are. And I was surprised that happened with the American Revolution books too. I thought, oh, sure, I get the biblical, that internationally they'd be popular, but America, and it's like, we're selling like gangbusters down under. So thank you, Aussies.
That's great. And it is, because even sometimes we think, and I don't know American history like I should, because really it's a country right beside, and we're really is influenced. I mean, even when you think about, the fight for liberty and that in the States, it's certainly somewhat of a similar situation in Canada, not the same experience that happened in history, but very closely tied, right? So it's always been on my mind, like, I need to get more American, I need to learn more about American history. And actually, movies do that pretty well too.
Right.
we get a lot of American history in some of the movies. But as you mentioned before about getting that accurate, like sometimes I have to think, okay, what was like a little bit just to make it dramatic for the film, and the creativity that way, right? And what was that like? Did they actually say that, right? So
Right.
it's good to look into that further, right? And
Oh, absolutely. And I love The Patriot. And Mel Gibson. I love that movie. And the bad guy, Tavington, was based on Bannister Tarleton, who's my bad guy. Okay, he wasn't that bad. Okay, but it's delicious to write him that evil, that he was. But they really took it to an extreme, I guess, but it's like I have to kind of set that right too, and I will in the book. You get plenty of villain out of him, but it won't be that bad. So yes, so parents, when you watch videos, when you watch movies and all, always fact check and say, okay, this was real, this was fake. What do the historians say about a film that came out? And even things like Hamilton. I saw Hamilton in New York and in Atlanta, and I love the musical. And it really flows well. He compressed so much history, to make it fun. And I'll be honest with you, first time I heard it, I was like, oh, George Washington rapping? No, this is like, but I'm like, if kids are getting excited and learning, I was like, okay, I got to listen to it. And so I did. And, there's some time compression and little things off, but by and large, listen, however you can get anybody excited about learning history, it's a wonderful thing. But just double check and make sure that you're learning the accurate history.
It might just be that introduction to that
right.
To that part of history, right? And then
That's
we
right.
should be able to look in other areas.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So why don't you tell our viewers where they can get your books? You did tell about we'll put your website up on there again. And that is actually a really neat website. Everybody just go and check out Jenny Cote's website, the epicorderaseven.net or .com, either one works. And be able to go and see her website, because it's really, I've done some website design in my past. And just as far as a nice creative thing, it's a very, very neat looking website. And then on there, you can get all the information. But tell us how to get it. Is it? I know Amazon sells them, so I was looking at it for his Canadian side. So I know they're on Amazon.
Yes, you can get the books if you want them signed and potographed. If you want them signed by the real Max and Liz, let me see if I have a potograph one right here. I think I did. Yes, I got to show you this. All right. Wait a minute.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. If you move back a little further.
See it? Okay. So it's signed by the real Max and Liz, and you can only get that from me. But you can get them on Amazon. You can get them Barnes and Noble, wherever you get your books. And of course, they're all on Kindle. They're all on ebook, for that. But if you go to my website, epicorderaseven.com, I have a page for each book. And on that page, like the Art of Reading the Fire Cloud, you'll see some behind the scenes interviews. My incredible illustrator, Rob Moffat, I interview him, and you get to see him sketching out some of the covers and how we talk about that. Yeah. And some of my behind the scenes research, especially the Revolution, I've got fun interviews with Patrick Henry, Lafayette, Bannister Tarleton on my website, and you can see some of the places that I've been. I like to go right on site. Like I wrote the Liberty or Death scene in St. John's Church on the day that it happened, in the room where it happened. And so I share my background history, and I actually, for The Roman, the 12, and the King, book 4, which is the life of Christ, that is told within the story of Handel writing the Messiah. And I actually flew to London, and I sat in Handel's composing room to write that scene. So I've got some pictures of that. But there's some fun. I've got a fan page, and you can see some letters and pictures, and I love getting letters and pictures from kids and their experience with the books. So just go poke around, and then if you go to my store, you'll see the books, and I've got t-shirts, and I've got all sorts of fun stuff in there that I hope you'll take a look at.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jenny. It's been a joy for me. And I know that our people that are watching now, as well as this will be a recording. So whether you're watching it now or as a recording, all this stuff that Jenny shares about history and getting that rich history, because history is really, I didn't love it in school. It was my worst class. But I went to public school, so that was a problem, right? But I love reading history books, and that's what comes alive. So thank you so much, first of all, for writing books like that, because they're so fun for adults and kids. Family book reading at its best right there. And thank you for joining us today.
Steph, thank you so much. And thank you to the Old Schoolhouse magazine and AMG for arranging this. I had a blast. I could talk all day. So, but I guess we got to stop.
I know.
So, thank you so much.
We got to stop at some point.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone, for now.
Bye, everybody.